welcome to episode number 7 of Bimcast. I have an exciting guest in the studio today. So we are wondering what could become the central common component for an entire construction industry. The buildingSMART data dictionary, also known as bSDD. It's still a relatively unknown entity, but in order to ensure the neutrality of the bSDD and make sure this powerful tool makes waves across the industry, we should all be joining forces. So in short, what is bSDD? How is it useful for the average construction project? And how can people start using it so that it will play the role it should in the time ahead? And in the studio today, I have Øyvind Skarholt. You are chairman of buildingSMART Norway, and you're also head of the, I don't know in English, but you can maybe introduce yourself and say it.
Yeah, it's I'm a manager for the Construction Product Association in Norway, which is organization for the manufacturers, the Norwegian manufacturers, for a wide range of construction products. And I was newly elected as chairman of the board of the Norwegian buildingSMART chapter.
Do you have any sort of, what's your background from previous work in?
Yeah, I've been within the association for like 7 years, and before that I was joining a Norwegian contractor, Selvåg Bygg. And there I was head of finance, calculation and procurement as a common unit. Before that I spent a few years within the wholesale or the retailers for construction products in Norway. So my background is more from the procurement and retail side more than the industry actually, which I'm now working for. So that's my background in short terms.
So you have been in this industry at least on the procurement side for a long time.
Yeah, more or less.
And I think that's a good sort of start on the buildingSMART data dictionary, which is right now there's a lot of focus on getting product data, for example, and understanding how in a construction process where you have at an early stage you're sort of setting some requirements on what you need to do for this building, and then at some point you need to procure exactly what products you need, and then there will be some logistics involved somehow, and there are some pricing along the way where how much is this going to cost. And then perhaps even afterwards or during the maintenance you need to change things, you need to maintenance things, and then you need to tear down the building and what you do then with all the products in there and so forth. So there is a long line of things that is going to happen. And from my perspective, buildingSMART data dictionary is there to make sure that everybody agrees on the sort of the data language used for all this. So for example, if you have a product with some properties on them, those properties should be clearly defined and clearly known for all the stakeholders in that process. So that's a producer of something, it's a supplier of that thing, it's the procurement guy that you were at some point, it's the construction company, it's the owner and the client and everything. So could you tell me a little bit about your experience so far with the buildingSMART data dictionary, how you came to first hear about it, and what's your impression so far?
Actually, it was one of the first things I heard about when I joined the association, because the Construction Products Association was actually one of the funders or one of the organizations that we financed the startup and was let's say early mover to get the bSDD up and running, because we saw that this can be the way to make sure that the industry is being able to have a competition on a fair not level, but have a fair competition, and it's also it was seen as an important fundament for how to organize your product data in a machine readable way. So actually, I think we trusted you, among others, maybe 12, 13 years ago to do the startup. And we decided a few years ago to transfer the ownership actually to bildingSMART International, because we saw it was important to have this international arena to make it available and develop it. So the bSDD has been a kind of like we like to see it, maybe a hidden diamond in the digitization of the construction industry as such, and being able to make those generic products or constructions products going from generic to the actual products. And that's what we now see that our members is getting more and more aware of. Who is making the decision about which supplier, which product to actually use in the building?
And who is generally making that decision?
At the moment, it's very often made on the spot by the contractor or by the carpenter, based on maybe gut feelings, maybe historic preferences, who was the last guy on the building site to sell a product, and so on. And it's very much it's very fragmented situation. But I was in Tokyo at the bildingSMART International Summit, and then there we had this this proof of concept shown by, among others, Catenda, how actually you are able to take the BIM model and digitally transfer it into the actual products, where actually in this case the carpenter makes his choices based on what products available are able to meet our requirements. And that's we had the same presentation last week for maybe 25 of our members on the top on the CEO level, and that was a real eye-opener for them to see, okay, where are my products in this model? Where are my properties, and so on? And I think that then you have bSDD as an important fundament to make that able. And when the big guys start to see this, I think we'll see some really good progress in both knowing about bSDD, and they see the importance of having one way to organize the digital information to have a fair competition.
That's really amazing to hear that all these people had an eye-opener and they finally saw something that was of great value. And you said earlier as well, and you re-said it now, the leveling of competition. How do you sort of imagine that the bSDD can help making the competition more fair and more even, in a sense?
Because we have to compare apples and apples on the properties, and that's all the manufacturers. They are very well aware of their performances on different topics or areas. But they're also very aware of different ways to test and to describe your or the products performances. So I think there will be quite a few manufacturers that will have to work on their own systems, their own PIMs, which I believe very many are at the moment working with, to organize their the product information in an effective and good way in order to be able to be seen in the market, either via databases or marketplaces, which we see popping up.
So you're representing all the sort of manufacturers of products in Norway, and they are. They agree that they want to compare apples to apples, or do they want to sort of stay in their own sort of corner and not being compared? Or how's that?
No, my impression is that they have very much trust in the product standards. That's a very important fundament for them. But they're also looking for performances which they can make a change compared to others. And how that will be in the future is hard to say, but I'm sure that for them to be able to distribute the performances and be able to make their products searchable in different ways will be a kind of game changer compared to what we see today. At the moment, we see that the retailers they are doing much work with their web shops. You don't see that much sales so far through that channel, but a lot of searching is going on. So actually, at the moment, we see not the contractors, but the retailers' web services as a pusher on getting performances available.
That's really interesting. So the sort of the suppliers or the ones that gathers all the products and sell them to
distributors.
For the distributors,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
They are the drivers of having standardized data that they can use for their own database and their own web shops, in a sense. Really interesting. And another thing that I was wondering, how do manufacturers manage their data internally, and how do they publish that data to somewhere where they can be searched and found?
Oh, that's a good question. We had a survey some weeks ago, and we asked our members, and approximately 50% are having or introducing separate PIM systems, product information management systems. Of course, they have ERP systems in the background. But when it comes to the distribution and organizing of all the product information, the ERP systems are not good enough, or doesn't have the capacity to solve that issue for them. So many of them are working with PIM systems, which are designed to organize product information. I think still you see a lot of Excel sheets around, of course. But as I said, 50% are at the moment operating PIMs or are introducing PIM into their system architecture. And we are not very we are a bit reserved to give our members advice on this here, because it's so complex. But there's one thing we tell them: that keep order in your own house regarding product information, and make sure that you are connected to the bSDD, which is what we have at the moment, so that your data will be in the same GUID that you will find on the other side eventually.
I totally agree. If you have that, then you can always publish your data to anywhere, in a sense, and people on the other side will recognize what you actually have of kind of data you have, because of this common language that bSDD then provides. But I hear a lot of, I wouldn't say complaints, but it's like, I understand that I need to do something about my data, but how should I organize this so that I can because there are so many demands out there, these guys want my data in this format, these guys want it in this format, and these guys want it there, and then I have the international, blah blah blah. How do I? What's your advice to your members when they ask these things?
Again, it's we have seen an increase in the content of product information, and I think it's very hard to make solutions or systems designed for the architects, the contractors, the retailers. But I think you have to have a good fundament, a good own product database, which you have the flexibility in the front end to distribute and marketing to the different customers. Because as a manufacturer, you have the end user as a customer, you have the architect, you have the contractor, you are in the end of the value chain, and you are only looking at customers who on different levels choose to pick your product. So we have to be flexible in how you work towards the market. And I think you will see different digital products on the buyer side or on the customer side, and being able to adjust your context or your way of showing your products is very important.
Yeah, I guess as a producer, you have to relate to one thing is the end user that is going to maybe rent an office space and use your products, but that's not who you're selling to. You're selling to the owner of the building, but the owner of the building usually tells the contractor to build it, and the contractors take something from the architects. You have to kind of relate to all of those all through the whole value chain and make sure that the architect is very happy, the contractor is very happy, and this is very happy, and the janitor is very happy, and everybody's very happy. So it's a complex world to sort of make sure, and that's where I think that the bSMART data dictionary has a great power, because you are a producer of some products, and you have some data about that, and you have to distribute that data to a lot of different people. The architect, he sits on his internal system, maybe it's a product from Autodesk, designing his product, and then the contractor who's going to procure this, he's in his other system, totally different system. Maybe he has an ERP system or a purchase system or procurement system or whatever. So that system has to understand the same kind of data that the architect system has to understand. And then you have the maintenance systems that needs to understand these data. And then you have the, the circular economy systems at the end that wants to reuse some of these products, needs to understand this data. So you have a lot of different systems that are today totally unrelated that needs to understand exactly the same data. And that's why if you don't have any kind of common language like the bSMART data dictionary, you are basically in trouble.
In big trouble, yeah.
And that's also, I think, some of the challenge, because it's very easy, and I'm very tempted not to name names, but I'm still tempted to do it. But there's let's say a governmental body somewhere in the world that is now experimenting with writing rule checking for their own sort of building codes. So they have building codes about fire. So you need fire zone and this and that and blah blah blah. And then they want to have an automatic checking system on their end that checks this building information model for compliance to the fire codes. And in order for them to do that, they have to agree on a common language. So they're picking not the bSMART data dictionary, but something else that is very local to this government, very narrow in scope. But if you want to use this service, you have to follow those codes. But it's exactly the same as the bSMART data dictionary is trying to do, but on a broader, wider scale. So for everyone, in my experience, who kind of come across this challenge, okay, we need a common language, and I'm going to exchange my data with this from here and to there. So we need to agree on a common language, and then you agree on a common language. Maybe it's written in the API, or maybe it's a preset agreement or whatever. But then you forget about all the other places where this data is useful that also should have this common data environment, or not common data environment, but a common language. So people usually have this narrow look on things, and they decide to do something, and they forget that, well, in order to do this, you actually have to look much wider and use the buildingSMART data dictionary, which I think is the only viable solution at this point. But how do you get started with the buildingSMART data dictionary? Do you have any, as a chairman of buildingSMART Norway, do you have a recipe for how to get started?
Well, first you have to make contact with buildingSMART, who is just actually running the buildingSMART data dictionary at the moment. And what you describe is that's more or less the nightmare for the manufacturers if they have to cope with all these different ways to describe and make coding of the products. That will be a total disaster. Because, like you understand, for the manufacturers, you have customers all the way. You have the distributors, the contractors, and so on. And there is so much efficiency and so much transparency and possibilities for actually having great progress within the digitization of the construction industry, to have this one way of doing it. But we also see we see the risk for those initiatives where people or organizations are eager to get started, and they want to digitize, and they want to do it in their way, and maybe they don't know about it, or they are too eager to have a quick fix, and that makes a lot of extra work and risk, and is actually not in their long-term interest either, I think, because everybody likes a fair competition and an open market. And by not having a standardized way to do this, I think that's a skräck scenario. It's the Shrek scenario.
Scary scenario.
Yeah, scary. Yeah, to have such a situation.
Yeah, that's very understandable, and I am hoping that because that scenario is so scary in a sense, that the driving force will go the right way. I think you, as a chairman of buildingSMART Norway, and buildingSMART Norway deserves a lot of credit, because you have actually now supplied buildingSMART International with a lot of resources in order to support the buildingSMART data dictionary. So I believe there is a product manager from that is hired by buildingSMART Norway, but works 50% of his time for buildingSMART International, being a product manager, and buildingSMART Norway is funding this, as far as I understand. And then you've also supplied an operationals person. I'm not sure the percentage of that, but could you explain a little bit about the situation there, because you're actually helping the international community a lot with these efforts.
Well, I'm not that into details about how this is organized between buildingSMART Norway and international, but I know that they're now working on a model, or a kind of business model, of how to make sure that bSDD that it's kept in ship shape and developed, and having the quality within the content and in the governance of the bSDD. So I think that's maybe one of the most important things that buildingSMART Norway can contribute into buildingSMART International with, because what I experienced when I meet my colleagues on from the other chapters. I learned that bSDD is not that well known, and it's a kind of new thing compared to the IFC standard. But I think what we saw in Tokyo on the summit there now in October was a kind of thumbs up towards the bSDD as the solution as we see it, and I think it's important for bildingSMART Norway to put effort into that, because we strongly believe in it, and we see that it's important for the digitization of the construction industry. And Norway, as a small market, it's easy to test out and to see how this can be in a big scale, worldwide big scale. So that's why we spend that much resources into it. And I also believe from the manufacturer's side that when the big guys start to see this, I think that will strengthen bSDD and also making bildingSMART more relevant for the manufacturers than what we've seen so far.
I totally agree. And you mentioned big guys earlier. Who are you thinking about when you say the big guys?
The big guys are the big manufacturers of the world, or European. You have Saint-Gobain, you have Knauf, Heidelberg, all the
Are
big.
they now waking up for this? Are you seeing some signs?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And that's very. I think that's about time, and it has to be mature, and now it's starting to be mature, because now we are able to actually see how this will be in the future. So, when we had this meeting last week, when actually the guys saw that, hey, my competitors' products are on the list, were not my products. And then they start to ask questions in their own organization. How are we doing about this, and who is responsible for this?
That gets the ball rolling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's really good. And a little bit back to the organization around bildingSMART Data Dictionary. I joined sort of this idea in 2004, so it's a long time ago. And for me, it was like, this is a really good concept. This is really interesting, and it really solves a lot of problems. And I came from out of sort of the computer science part of it. Was a developer of software. But it was, for me, like, this is interesting. And then I started to learn about it, and I was talking a lot with my, at that time, colleague, and still colleague, Lars Bjerkhaug, who was one of the fathers of this bildingSMART Data Dictionary. And every week when I talked to him, I started, now I understand exactly how this works. And then a few days passed, like, I don't understand anything. And I went back to Lars, I know, blah, 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 and then now I understand everything. And that went on for about, I don't know, a couple of months. So it was really like a long, it's difficult to really grasp exactly what bildingSMART Data Dictionary is. And has been a big problem in terms of selling it. What is it? Well, do you have 2 months? I can explain it to you. So that's a challenge that I think bildingSMART Data Dictionary has to fix. It's not easy. There's been doing a lot of work on it, and it's a good progress in going on. But from that early beginnings, and through a lot of proof of concepts and stuff like that, I now think we're in a different spot. But I still hear people that say, well, yeah, it's a great idea, but I'll wait until it's ready before I engage. And I think that's the absolutely wrong position, because then I believe if you do that, your product will not be on that list, but everyone else will. Or your processes will not be digitized, but everyone else's will be. But if everybody had the attitude of, okay, we understand that bSDD is a great idea, it has some serious potential, let's try to start using it and chip in on making this happen. For example, to have this business model working, how can you make bildingSMART Data Dictionary a sustainable business? It doesn't take a lot of money, but it does take some money to have somebody in charge, somebody take the phone, support, maintenance, etc., further development, so forth. And that's kind of like hard. The bootstrapping there seems to be a little bit of a challenge. I don't know if you have any thoughts or comments on that.
No, I know they're working with the concept and the business model and this idea of having agents and so on, but I'll not go into that. But I'm still not sure if I understand bSDD totally. But I think it's maybe more important in the communication to see or to try to tell what it solves. What problem does it solve? And don't get too much into all the details behind when you're going to explain to the manufacturers that actually this system, this concept is able to do this and this and this in one way, one place, and making you able to be on that market. And if we succeed with that, I think you have one or two partners or manufacturers as now members in bildingSMART International, and if we're able to get a few of the, like I told you, the big guys to see this and see how important it is. This is actually in the big picture peanuts. It's not even peanuts. It's dust to have this as this fundament that we see it.
I totally agreement with that. And I think peanuts is I agree. It's not even peanuts because the money you will save once this works is just humongous. And I'm convinced that there is a huge number out there that nobody even knows. But it's
so, but seeing it from the Norwegian perspective, if I can get because we have also Saint-Gobain, we have Knauf, we have Heidelberg, we have all those in the Norwegian market, and by making my members aware of how this possibility and this diamond which we need to develop. And Norway, as a mature market on this, can be a front runner in order to strengthen the bSDD internationally. But then you have to make it very understandable to what it solves and what kind of insurance actually it is. More than trying to explain how it works, because that's a long shot.
I agree. We in Catenda, this is something we sort of bet our business on. At an early point in our career, actually the first year we were initiated, we went on a huge development project that now is the foundations of buildingSMART data dictionary that is owned now in full by bildingSMART International. But we sort of bet the company on that. And we really believe that if we are going to deliver high value on a BIM collaboration service, a BIM server model where we have the life cycle perspective and all that, and the data becomes really important. Without the bSDD, we cannot deliver that value. So we need that. And that's where sort of we're coming from and why we've contributed a lot of our resources and still do in terms of helping bSDD becomes alive. In fact, we're now looking for another resource to add to the team that can focus on bSDD more full-time than what we're able to do right now. And I think that's important for us as a strategy, and I'm really happy that if Norway can sort of push through and show the world how this can be done, that's a big advantage for a company like ours, because we can ride on that wave and export what I believe high-value features out in the world built on this. So that's exciting for us, and we would like to support that. And I think there is another sort of very interesting change. You mentioned the Tokyo Summit from bildingSMART International. And for me, that was a big turn of events, in the sense that the process that had been going on for many years of making bSDD a real central part of bildingSMART International, being part of that. bildingSMART International is just not IFC, but is more. And bildingSMART Data Dictionary is another important part of that. And in the summit, there was a really turn-on event, because now those are sort of equal in value, and there is a clear understanding on how IFC and bSDD should work together, because bSDD can enhance IFC a lot, extend it with the properties and whatever you need, with a lot of semantic information and so forth, so it becomes much more richer and much more dynamic, and that's exciting to see. Finally, we're getting there, where now these things work together and provide great value out there. So that was my take home from Tokyo. It was really exciting about that, and now it needs to make sure that the message is clear and comes out, and that with the support of bildingSMART Norway's chapter, we can push forward and so forth. So what do you see as the next big challenge for your members, not bildingSMART Norway members, but your association members, in terms of using bSDD or getting started, or what's the first step in a sense?
At the moment, we are in Norway. We are working with what we call the Norwegian context, where we are to, based on the product standards, are to make the Norwegian context what properties or what do you call it?
The templates, product templates.
The making the product data templates for all the different product types. So that's the work we have recently started, to make sure that we make it possible to handle for the manufacturers to enrich their PIMs with all the product information that is what they find is important in the market. In that process, I think it's very important for us to not make it too technical, complicated, seen from the IT side, but being able to connect the product knowledge with the semantics and the structure within bSDD and the systems. Who's going to be a bit under the hood? That's just going to work, but they have to be sure to have a bSDD under the hood, which is reliable and ship shape and not making any disturbance into their processes in making all this information available.
So you've actually now made the Norwegian sort of manufacturers sort of collaborate on making product templates for each product type. Has that been an easy job, or is there a lot of, I want this property on this, and we're not going to have that? Or
so far, we started up 2 weeks ago with gypsum. So we have 2 manufacturers in Norway making gypsum, from the Knauf and Saint-Gobain. So they met and they took the standards and they split 44 properties each to make sure that it's the test methods and everything is done in the right way. And that's for them. It's they are very eager to do this because it's understandable and they know the product standards, and we with the support from bildingSMART Norway and also Norsk Byggtjeneste sitting around the table, we saw that was a very good start, but we see that we will eventually also get properties which are maybe not part of the product standards, which are more market-driven properties. and to make sure that those properties also are taken care of in the bSDD is very important. It's so far it's been a good start, but then it's a lot of work, and it's very important to make it as efficient and as a good process as possible. So that's why we were doing this as pilots to learn the process and to see what is the most efficient and best way to do this, and how to use the specialists within the industry at the manufacturers.
So that's fantastic that you're able to kind of collaborate that way. And then once you have these product templates, data templates ready, each of them can incorporate that into their own sort of product information management systems, BIMs. And then you have connected the dots in a sense by saying this GUID is this value and so forth, and then you can start communicating. Really good. So that's a great start, and that's a good tip for other countries and other manufacturers.
I hope we can show it maybe on the next summit in Germany in April, to show how we have solved this and how this actually works together, and also see how this can work together with the IFC and actually being an asset for the manufacturers to have that product information based on the bSDD in their own PIMs. That's I think we will have some good examples to show the world in April. That's
fantastic. Really looking forward to that.
Me too.
Do you have any other things that you would like to add to the sort of public domain about bildingSMART Data Dictionary that you think we haven't talked about, that you think is important to get out there?
Like an end statement?
Or whatever.
No, but I think it's I think you are Catenda as a front runner on this is doing a very important job to show the importance of the bSDD, and we're very happy to have you with us in the Norwegian market and in the bildingSMART and in the construction industry, because Norwegians are funny people. We like to we're very much aware of what the world thinks about us. So if someone foreign say, hey, look to Norway, we get very proud and we do more of that. So if you just go on and make your products available, I understand you're doing quite well in France at the moment, lots of new customers, and I think that pushed the Norwegian market forward as well, because we like to see ourselves as a front runner in the bildingSMART community and the use of open BIM, and in that perspective the bSDD is a very, very important fundament for the digitization in general, and for the manufacturers in special in the future.
Thank you very much, Øyvind, for coming and guesting us, being a guest here today. I'm really glad that, because I've been looking forward to talking about bSDD for a long time on a podcast series, and I think it was a very good choice of a guest, because you have the sort of manufacturing point of view, and you also are helping bildingSMART Norway chapter, supporting bildingSMART International by pushing bSDD forward. So you have a lot of sort of connections there, and nobody really knows what bSDD is all about. So some of us know a little bit more in the details, and others knows more how it can be utilized and the processes around it. So a combination there is great, and I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you very much for
Thank you.